If you're over the age of 60 and your doctor has told you that your blood sugar is normal, that word normal is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and it may not mean what you think it means. So, normal on a blood test is just a line that's been drawn to diagnose diabetes. It was never meant to tell you that your level is safe or that it is where you want to be. The risk that comes with blood sugar does not switch on the moment you cross into the diabetic range. It rises very steadily long before that, for years and years before that. And after the age of 60, your body becomes more vulnerable to that. So in this video, I want to explain why normal is not the same as optimal. I want to explain as well what the landmark trials actually show and the real number that you should be aiming for. And there's an important twist in this video because the right target is very different depending on whether you take diabetes medications or not. And getting that wrong can be very, very dangerous. So stay with me until the end if that relates to you. And again, if you find this video useful, if you find it valuable, if it helps you, then please, please, please help me out by liking the video, giving the video a hype as well, and subscribing to the channel. It won't cost you a penny. It's completely free, but it supports me to keep making these videos and keep making them free for you to hopefully help as many people as possible. So thank you so, so much, and let's carry on with the rest of the video. So the first thing to understand here is that normal, in inverted commas, is just a threshold. It's not a target. When your blood sugar is measured, doctors either do a fasting glucose or more commonly an HbA1c or an A1c, which is basically just your average level over the last 3 months. The cutoffs that label you as normal or pre-diabetic or diabetic are useful to make a diagnosis, but the harm from glucose does not respect those lines. Nothing in medicine or physiology is black and white like that. The relationship is continuous, which means that as your average level creeps up, your risk creeps up with it as well, even while you are still sitting inside this so-called normal range. A large study from the UK called the EPIC Norfolk trial followed thousands and thousands of middle-aged and older people and found a steady rise in deaths from all causes and from heart disease in particular as their HbA1c increased. And that rise was already visible within the normal range. So being told that you were normal is a bit reassuring, I guess, but it is not the same as being told that you were in the clear. And this matters most for your brain and for your heart. So in a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and as always, I'll put all of the links in the description below for you. Researchers in this study, they followed older people who didn't have diabetes and tracked their glucose over the next few years. Now, even in these people, those with a higher average glucose had a higher risk of going on to develop dementia. And the difference showed up at levels most doctors would happily call normal. To put rough numbers on it, so an average glucose of around 6.4 in the UK or 115 in the US was linked to a noticeably higher dementia risk than an average of around 5.5 or 100 in the US, and neither of those would earn you a diagnosis of diabetes. Now, as with a lot of this research, this was observational data, so it cannot prove that the glucose itself caused the dementia, but it lines up with everything that we understand about how higher than normal sugar slowly damages the small blood vessels in your brain, including the ones that can gradually cause dementia. And the thing is, as you get older, this becomes a lot more important, particularly over the age of 60. So as we get older, our muscles and our other tissues become more resistant to insulin, so the body has to work harder to keep your blood sugar in check. And the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin gradually lose some of their reserve, some of their ability. The result is that a lot of people after the age of 60 drift slowly upwards into the high normal and the pre-diabetic range without ever feeling a thing. At the same time, older blood vessels and an older brain are simply more vulnerable to the damage that raised glucose causes through a process called glycation, where sugar literally sticks to proteins in the body to form what we call advanced glycation end products, which drive inflammation and stiffening of your arteries. So the same level that might be fairly harmless at the age of 30 can do more harm at the age of 65, which is why I don't want anybody over the age of 60 to treat a normal label as a reason to relax. Now, the obvious conclusion here might be that anybody over the age of 60 should be aiming to get their glucose level as low as possible. Now, that is true for some people, but for other people, it is outright dangerous.
and this is the part that the headlines almost always get wrong. The single most important question isn't what your number is, but how you are getting there. So lowering your blood sugar with food and movement is a completely different thing from forcing it down with strong medication, and the two have very different consequences. But to understand why, we need to talk about one of the most important diabetes trials ever run. So the trial here was called the ACCORD trial, and it changed how we think about this exact question. So researchers took more than 1,000 people with type 2 diabetes who were at pretty high risk of developing heart problems with an average age in their early 60s, and they split them into two groups. One group aimed for a near normal HbA1c below 42 in the UK or 6% in the US using whatever combination of medication it took. The other group aimed for a more relaxed target between 53 and 63 in the UK or 7 and 7.9% in the US. The expectation was that the group with lower sugar would do better. But instead, the trial had to be stopped early because the intensively treated group had a 22% higher risk of dying, basically driving down these numbers really hard with drugs, often several drugs at once, caused several episodes of low blood sugar, and in older people, those episodes can trigger falls and heart rhythm problems, and even worse as well, bleeding on the brain because they've fallen over and hit their head on the floor. This is why modern guidelines deliberately set easier targets for older people on medication, often somewhere between 53 and 69 in the UK, or 7 and 8.5% in the US, depending on their overall health. And why doctors increasingly try to take people off the riskiest drugs rather than piling more on. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that if you take insulin or you take tablets like sulfonylureas, lower is not the goal, and chasing a perfect number can put you in hospital. And if this is the case for you, then you've got to listen to your own doctor about which number to be aiming for, not listening to me here because obviously I don't know your record, I don't know your medication history, I don't know anything about you. So please just listen to your doctor if you take those medications. So this is the part where it all gets a bit confusing. So on the one hand, I'm telling you that people with higher blood sugar tend to die earlier. But then on the other hand, the group in the ACCORD trial that achieved lower blood sugar died more often. Well, the answer here is that a low number reached naturally is not the same as a low number forced down with medication artificially. When your blood sugar is low because you eat well and you move your body and you carry less fat around your middle, that is a sign of a healthy, well-functioning system. When it's low because 3 different drugs are dragging it down past where your body wants to see it, the benefits of the low number sort of gets canceled out, and then some by the risk of crashing too far, basically. The level on the page looks the same. It's roughly identical, but what it represents couldn't be more different. So for the large group of people that don't take diabetes medications, the encouraging thing here is that the levers that lower your blood sugar safely are entirely in your hands. The biggest lever is what is on your plate. So the aim is to get most of your carbohydrates from whole intact foods like vegetables and beans and lentils and whole grains, which are absorbed really slowly, and then at the same time to try and massively cut back on the refined carbohydrates that come in ultra-processed foods that usually spike your blood sugar. The second lever is your muscle, because your muscles are the main place that spare glucose gets stored and then burned off. So a short walk after meals blunts the rise in your blood sugar, and regular resistance training builds up the muscle that soaks it all up in the first place, which is one of the most underrated things that anybody over the age of 60 can do. This is why I talk about muscle so much on this channel. The other thing is sleep. Sleep matters as well, since even a few bad nights makes your cells more resistant to insulin, and losing a little weight from around the middle improves this entire picture. None of those things there carries any risk of your blood sugar going too low unless you massively restrict your calories, which, the average person isn't going to be doing. And this is why this is the right approach for anybody wanting to lower their blood sugar number, to try and do it naturally. So the real answer here is that there isn't really a magic line where blood sugar suddenly becomes safe. The risk runs very much on a sliding scale. And for almost everybody, like with blood pressure, the lower your blood sugar sits, as long as it's your own body keeping it there rather than medication,
the better. So if you're not on any diabetes medication, then don't settle for simply scraping under this diabetic line. You want to try and keep your fasting glucose in the low 5s, ideally under around 5.5 in the UK or under around 100 in the US, and your HbA1c comfortably below the pre-diabetic range, which means under about 39 to 42 in the UK or 5.7 to 6% in the US. And like I said, generally for most people, the lower the better. The closer you can get towards the lower end through food and through movement, the more protected you are against all of these diseases that I talk about all the time. So treat those numbers as the level rather than the finish line, if that makes sense. And if you are on any diabetes medication, then your real number is the one that your doctor has set for you, and it is deliberately higher to keep you safe from going too low. For you people, the message is very much the opposite, which is to work with your team, never to chase a lower number on your own, and to flag any episodes where you feel shaky or sweaty or confused, because those are signs that your treatment may be pushing you down too far. And the ultimate goal for anybody who takes type 2 diabetes medications is to do the lifestyle things alongside all of that very gradually, so that eventually, with lots of monitoring and lots of guidance, you may be able to reduce your medication or possibly come off them entirely under supervision. And again, as with every video, this is education. It's not personal medical advice. And if you're confused or you've got any questions, then please make sure you speak with your own doctor as well, who knows you and who knows your medication record. But I really hope you found it useful. I hope it sort of sparked some new questions in your own head as well and got you motivated to make some changes. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.